Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about dealing with a bench press that is weak off the chest. So what do we mean by weak off the chest? That it sticks to your chest? No, that means it's just too heavy. You just get stapled, you're just lifting a weight that's too heavy. What I mean by weak off the chest is you pause, you go to drive it up, it comes up 3 inches off your chest and stops. Okay? So there's a lot of solutions, and I'm going to have a lot of those solutions in the background going. And I'm going to stick with solutions that are going to be relatively universal. And here's why. Because some of these solutions that people propose are not useful for everyone. Right? If you guys recall with Mikey, we built his chest up by doing dips and floor press. Keep in mind his structure, he can pretty much touch his chest on a floor press. And he can do dips without any shoulder inflammation. At least he could up to a certain point, and then those became problematic for him. So let's stick with the basics. First of all, higher rep pause benching. Okay, and what I mean is do your rep work with your normal bench, pause every single rep. And what do we mean by higher reps? 8 or more reps. And here's the reason I state that. I want people to think about this for a moment. If we're weak off the chest, usually our pecs are weak. Now, it could be weak lats, could be some weak upper back contributing. Right? You should probably work on those things. But let's talk about the forms of pressing that we can do to correct this. We need to build our pecs, and we need to build our pecs in a way that gives them more of the joint angle specificity that is right off the chest. Meaning we need to make sure that the muscle fibers of the pecs that are going to be used coming off the chest are hypertrophying significantly, because not all muscle fibers are used in the entire range of motion of any given exercise. Right? Just like I've said before, your lockout close grip bench will help for that, even for your chest. But off the bottom, that's going to be a big one. It's going to be just pause benching for 8 or more reps. And the reason is, as the reps start to get higher, there's been data that shows that the pecs actually get more stimulation. And as we get heavier, we get a little more delt and tricep. But if we're weak off the chest, we need more pecs. So 8 to 10, 8 to 12 reps, things like that for pause work, where you actually pause on every rep and stay tight. That'll also help teach you to stay tight and keep your arch. All right, that's your baseline. What else? Well, you see me doing some dumbbell presses in the background. Dumbbell chest presses, flat ones. Flat ones. Now, people will say, what about inclines? So, no, I don't think incline's that great. Coming off the bottom. I don't think that it is. But dumbbells, flat and possibly decline. We could even make the case for some decline benching, depending upon where you miss. But flat or decline dumbbell presses. Why? Because we get that deep stretch at the bottom. It's a longer range of motion. We can get a stretch reflex. We're training the muscles related to that part of the bench press. And before, we get a lot of chest hypertrophy, and we get the added advantage of we can get a contracted position at the top too, due to the ability of them to move freely. All right, dumbbells are actually a great all-around chest builder, not just for this purpose. They can actually be useful for your lockout as well. So it's very difficult to go wrong with dumbbell chest presses unless you do them really silly like bodybuilders do a lot of times, who don't know how to do them correctly, and they don't come all the way down. Defeats the purpose of the dumbbell. It's that ability to move freely in that stretch that we get at the bottom, right? That is really, really valuable. It's really valuable. The only thing to keep in mind is that we can't, without sometimes risking our shoulders, get them out to a wider grip. We're stuck with more of a close to a medium grip with them, but the fact that we get the deeper stretch can make up for that. All right. So what else can we do? What can we do to get it wider? Well, we can do some illegal wide benching, which you'll see me doing up there also. What does illegal wide bench mean? It means we're completely outside the bench rings, right? Which means you can't do it in competition. So in my case, I'm usually about a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch outside the rings when I mess with illegal wide. Now, the same rules apply as we did with the normal pause bench. You want to go wide, you need to go high reps, you need to pause it. Okay, set up your arch and everything like normal. The illegal wide puts a deeper stretch on the chest, more so than we will get with our normal grip. It's also harder on the shoulders, which means we need to be very, very careful. What I'm going to recommend is don't really exceed unless you really know what you're doing, probably don't exceed 50% of your max bench. Right, and that's sufficient. You're still going to get tremendous chest stimulus, and you'll need multiple sets to really get it to hit hard. But if you haven't been doing any, you're going to get a novel training response here. You're going to get a deep stretch on your chest, even with 50% of your bench max, due to it being harder in the leverage differences. And specifically, it's going to hypertrophy your pecs. Now, what you're going to find is that it's not going to really do much else. Things like your triceps and stuff, they're not going to get significant stimulation from it, but your pecs will. So illegal wide benching is an extremely useful tool. You'll also see me doing the Mcdonald Bar. And you guys can research this yourself as the history of it. Right? You can research the history yourself. But the guy who invented it was a world record bench holder in multiple classes, raw. I mean, and we're talking about a guy who was benching over 500 pounds at 180. Put that in perspective. All right, that's, even by today's standards, that's extremely ultra elite. And he was doing this 40 years ago. He was benching well past 500. I want to say the guy benched like 560 or something ludicrous in the 181 class. Just crazy. He invented this bar and he used it a lot. Now I'm using it similar to dumbbells. You can put boards and stuff on there to limit the range of motion. I'm coming down just to where it stretches like a dumbbell. Now, some people say, well, what's the advantage there? Because it's in a fixed plane, unlike the dumbbells, it can't drift out. We can go to a wider grip than we can with the dumbbell. We can get a much wider grip, so it gives a different stretch, but then we get down to the same sort of range of motion we get with a dumbbell. Just you have to be careful with it. And if you're going to go heavy with this bar instead of a bunch of rep work like I'm doing, getting that stretch reflex, you probably need to use boards on there to find your range of motion that you can do without hurting yourself. So again, you can put bench blocks, things like that on it. Those are all useful. They're all viable for changing the range of motion on this, because maybe you only want it to go a couple inches deeper. Also, and I don't think I included any footage in here, you can get a very similar effect with a buffalo bar. Some people call it a bow bar. A couple of companies make their own called like a bison bar and stuff, but the buffalo bar. And as Chris Duffin, my bro, calls it the Duffalo Bar, the one that he makes. Again, Chris Duffin, it's his trademark. They all work. You can get a similar effect with that, but then you'll be able to touch a little bit easier. So that's also an option, because this bar is a little harder to find. You can find them on Amazon. That's where I got this one. It took a while to find one. This is a very, very good option if you have access. But if you don't, and you don't mind going over and then pausing, which again gives you the very similar response, and we can do that as well. You can do pause work with a buffalo bar. This, because I'm not touching the chest, we're getting a stretch reflex like the dumbbell. But every single one of these are viable here. And the main thing is that they all put a stretch on the pecs. They all hypertrophy the pecs significantly, and they hypertrophy the pecs in a way that is specific to the bottom of the bench. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.